Hello. Uh, Nowadays everybody doing some kind of like podcast. I'm doing podcast too. You doing episode? I am doing episode too. You know, maybe we're gonna continue with English language learning. This is gonna be episode number 2. Okay, so I remember in the very first episode when I talk about the language learning, I'm talking about the 3 components, right, of the language components that are critical: vocabulary, um, the sentence structure, and let's recap that. And then the last part is the articulation, like the sound production of those words. And so those are sort of like recap from the first episode. The second episode I want to do on the language learning. I want to talk about the method and the approach. If you were to study the language by yourself, or you do it online, or how would you do it? Remember, the best thing that you learn, the best thing that people learn when they're no longer in school. They're probably, they're probably at work. They probably just learn on their own. That's the best time and the best thing that you learn. Remember, language is like a product. It's just a special type of product, right? It's it's kind of like the operating system. Language is an operating system. It's a special type of a software. It's an operating system that takes the longest ever to install on the minds of human being. From a child development to adolescent to adulthood, and there is no guarantee that um, the language going to be the same. It's vary from person to person. But, sometimes you should ask who has the best language learning module. We should ask that. Who has the best language training module? It's kind of like when you in college or university, which department that specialize in teaching English? It's an English department, right? And which building, which department that actually specialize in science, right? In math, in physics, in chemistry. It's a physical sciences, right? It's just kind of like so. So you go to that place who has the best language training module, who specialize in world languages. Currently, in the world, there are 6,500 different languages, 6,500 different languages, not including dialects. So who created um, the world languages? Who created the world languages? The 65, it gotta be somebody, you know, then go there, seek for help. It should be free. Who created the world languages? Who's behind, 6,500 different languages in the world? If you go to any, here in the United States, you go to any city library, even a small city library, let alone you go to library at the college level, university library or college library, even a big city library, there always a section, they even have the entire floor devoted to world languages. Even bookstore, Barnes and Noble bookstore, Coffee Bean bookstore, they have a similar layout as well. World languages, travel. The world are created for us to travel. The world languages are created for us to explore. You know, what's the origin of you know the world languages? I remember back into sort of like back in the book of Genesis in the Bible. It's a story of a Tower of Babel. That's the origin of world languages. As a matter of fact, let's ask Google, let's ask Siri, what is the Tower of Babel? Okay, hold on. What is the story of Babel? Well, you know what? This is what Google generated result. They say that the story of Bible is a mythical story that found in the Christian book of Genesis. You know? Okay, I believe in you, Google. Moving on, right? Google. They can say whatever it is. It's a mythical story found in the Christian Old Testament book of Genesis. I believe in you, Google. Moving on. Anyway, so have you ever heard of? So that's why it's a world languages. 6,500 different languages. World languages, the world are created for you to travel, to enjoy. Languages are there for you to explore. Have you ever heard of this song? This land is my land. This land is your land. From when I first came to know this song, this is a very nice song. When I first came to know this song, it was at the halftime Super Bowl. It's kind of like on the TV ad. They're talking about a car, a cheap car, a Cherokee, and I love that song ever since. They say, "This song, this land is my land. This land is your land. From California to New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf waters, this land was made for you and me." So that's why, when you take a look at different groups of people, let's say that people in Europe, they grown up and they accustomed to speaking more than 3, 4 different languages. So that's a very natural case, because they learn and they're accustomed knowing all these languages when they were little. But take a look at groups of Asian people, okay, because at least they are physically similar to one another. We are Oriental, we are Asian. Take a look at the Japanese people, the Vietnamese people, the Korean people, the Chinese people, given the same amount of time, and see which group are making more progress. Whose English is getting better, whose pronunciation are more clear. So that kind of like shed some light and give us some idea of the method and the approach that they use, and look into those kind of stuff. Sometimes all the language school and the language training center sort of like give us an idea, an expression that you have to focus on, a perfect how to learn English with a perfect accent, like an American accent or the British accent or Australian accent. I mean having an accent, those are having mark. It's not easy to, those types of mark, having mark, are not easily erased. That's our goal. Is not to speak with, a perfect accent. Our goal is being more fluent in the language. Especially when you learn the second language, English, when you're already an adult, and the second language adult learner. Our goal is to be fluent in the languages. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at the university, at the college level, the higher the education goes, you're going to find the higher percentage of people who speak English, the higher percentage of professors teaching in the college, they speak English with an accent. Because you know what, they are scholars, they came here to sort of like do their research, and their main primary job is not to teach, but to research. So you speak in English with an accent, I consider to be intellectual, especially if you are an adult learner. I learned English when I first, when I was old. I almost finished high school in Vietnam. It's a level 3 school in Vietnam already when I came here. So there's no way that I'd be able to speak English with a native accent. And that is not my goal. Just don't let the language school and the language training center make you believe that it is your goal. It is not your goal. Your goal is to be fluent in the language, so that you be able to communicate more informatively, and even with some level of convincing or persuasion. you know so As a matter of fact, one of my favorite English teacher, not ESL teacher, okay, is an English teacher. He's from China, you know. He's actually the chairman of the English department, and he taught me the English courses, not the ESL course, English course. Professor Rong Chen, you know. So that's why I'm look. Sometimes you take a look at the method, the approach that you're gonna learn the language. What would be the best method? What would be the best approach you learn? And of course, the person teaching that method is just as important. You know, you're looking for people who actually have this kind of like quality attributes. They an expert in that area. Of course, native speakers of English, they are an expert in English, right? Because they are native speakers, but not necessarily that they know you. You know, you're looking for people who actually know you, how hard it is to learn the second language. You know, you're looking for people who actually know how hard it is to learn a second language. They also learning another language, the second language. They know how hard it is, so they have to be determined. So looking for people who expert in the area, in English language, looking for a person who knows you, and they care about you. I mean, very, very hard to actually find people who actually meet all these criteria. I would say Vietnamese Americans or the Vietnamese living overseas outside of Vietnam, whether it's in United States or Canada. Those Vietnamese that born in the English-speaking nation state, and they speak Vietnamese fluently. They know how hard it is to learn Vietnamese. So they know how hard it is for you to learn English. And you know what? They can share with you. Those they already expert in English because that's their native language. They born here, and they 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 know how hard it is to speak Vietnamese. If their Vietnamese are fluent, that means that they make some kind of determination to learn the language. It doesn't come to them by chance. So those people, Vietnamese American, Vietnamese Australian, Vietnamese Canadian, those are, and those are the people that seem like they sort of like fulfill the top two criterion. They're expert in that language, and they know you because they themselves learn how to do it. So, you know what? Oh, the thing is, chị Lê Đăng Nguyễn, she used to be a news anchor for one of the news TV program in Southern California. You know, she speaks Vietnamese fluently. As a matter of fact, she has her podcast in Vietnamese. Chị Nguyễn Cao Kỳ Duyên, I remember chị Nguyễn Cao Kỳ Duyên saying that when she first started out speaking in Vietnamese, on stage, in the Paris by Night TV program, her Vietnamese isn't that great, which means that they value it and they determined to learn. The more they practice, the better they get. Remember anything. What is hard, use drill, because it's just consistency. The more you do, the better you're gonna get it. Okay, and today let's focus on. I believe that the hardest things in the language, in the English language, for the Vietnamese speakers for the Vietnamese speaker, would be maybe asking a question, right? So focus on structure, how to structure asking a question, and focus on like the hardest part in the sentence structure, which is the phrasal verb. Like I talked before last time, it's kind of like committed to 3 months, 4 months, right? Kind of like focus on one part of the sentence structure, or focus on the question things, like 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 today I will talk about the asking indirect question, right? Indirect question. I'm asking if you took the class. I'm asking whether you like the color of the shirt. I'm asking whether you have already enrolled in this class. So those are kind of like indirect WS question, and I will link below some of the exercise you can do to sort of like focus on asking question, indirect question, with the WS, and